My question is about your comments and about the nutrition being dead on arrival. And what I wanted to ask about is how much of that sentiment may be influenced by the political divide, especially in the United States. I know that the term soy boy has entered our vernacular, and that's a super negative, especially for men. My husband and I are now plant-based, but when we talk to other people, I sense that there's a resistance based on what feels to me like political leanings, and people don't want to be lumped in with a group that they think. Are you kind of following where I'm going with this?
Yes, very much so. And I'm very interested. Go ahead and finish.
Well, I mean, I have tried, and I guess I've been doing this long enough to realize that just giving the people the information, like you said, it's been available, doesn't move hearts. I think, I'm sure you're familiar probably with Earthling Ed and how he just starts talking to people regardless of their political affiliations or their background with what they've been eating. And I just sense that there's resistance to the information because people don't want to be affiliated with these groups that perhaps it does mean they're going to have poor nutrition, or they're not raising their children right, or they didn't vote for the right person. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's very complex, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
All kinds of factors go into our political persuasions. But I think, there has been this macho element that's existed for obviously decades, more than a century, and I think that tends to, if I can be so bold, without getting in trouble, that tends to be more associated with the right than with the left. But I myself, I don't want this to be confusing, my talk, because I like to be a scientist first and foremost, but I am a progressive, more on the progressive side of things, not always. I thought a lot about that question, and particularly in this pandemic time, as you know, everything has become so polarized, it's awful. And the whole question concerning vaccinations, for example, that's politically divided up. One side yes, one side no. But the one side who are so in favor of it, they never mention nutrition. But then again, the ones who are sort of opposed to it, they don't mention much about nutrition either. So I don't know. It's hard to walk that line and try to figure, okay, you're in this camp, I'm in this camp, kind of thing. The political persuasion, one part of the political persuasion, I will say, I'm really confident of on this point, those who favor very strongly the supremacy of the corporate model for advancing health, let's say they tend to be on the right, but I'm just also persuaded that it's not just a conservative movement. That's a movement on both sides, and I find that very troubling. The corporate model, yes, we have a corporate model. That's what we live by. I'm all for it. I'm all free market, and that sort of thing. There's no question about that. But the role of the corporate world into what we get to know about nutrition and health in general, that is so powerful. The corporate world is so powerful. Now, if you can line up that sentiment with one party or another, well, more power to you if you can sort that out. But I think both sides participate in that game. And that's where the real issue is. Corporate influence controlling government, really what it is. We've got to find some way to deal with that, because they would rather leave things just as the way they have been, the way they are, because it makes a lot of money when you start working with the parts, like in nutrition or in medicine in general, drugs, nutrients, you start looking at the parts and you get intellectual property protection for whatever idea or entity you may have. You can get that. Now you're off to the races. You can make a business out of it, make some money. Whereas nutrition, you can't get intellectual property for nutrition. That's where the nature of the problem really lies. So the corporate world are interested in income, quite frankly, and that favors a certain point of view. And so I don't know. I can't. In my box, I can't decide. Okay, all is one or one, all the other. Just sorry about that.
We hear you on that one, Dr. Campbell. And with that, we'll bring now Anne into the room. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, Dr. Campbell. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm calling you from Toronto, Canada. I was diagnosed with stage 4 high serous ovarian cancer last year. I've been following your diet protocol. So far, my CA-125 numbers have maintained between 10 and 12. I'm just wondering, is there anything else I can do? Because if I speak to my oncologist, he doesn't know anything about diet and food. And he wants to do MRIs and CT scans. And so far my numbers are maintaining themselves. And I'm just happy to go along as it is right now.
Yeah, well, I get asked those kind of questions often. I'd like to point out, of course, I'm not a clinician, so I'm not registered to practice medicine, obviously. So whatever I say is strictly from from the book on the science side. And as far as the ovarian cancer is concerned, one of the things about that is the role of dairy as far as foods are concerned, animal food for sure. I think I showed a chart on ovarian cancer. I think one of those animal protein. So you're going in the right direction if you go over this other side, to the plant side. I think only good can come out of it based on the data I'm familiar with. It's true that oncologists, none of them are trained in nutrition, none, zero. But their fundamental premise for treatment is rest on the use of drugs and surgery and radiation maybe. Those are all sort of very reductionist ideas. And nutrition is just too holistic for their liking. But the nutrition that contribution to cancer, either in terms of preventing it, sustaining it, or even reverse it, is about the same as it is for heart disease and diabetes and the rest of them. I can't put my finger on any one food, stick with this or that or something else. It's just eat a good whole food plant-based diet. Don't add a lot of oil back, that's for sure. Because the most of oil is so-called omega-6, pro-inflammatory, and it creates problems. So even though that oil is coming from plants, when you take it out of a bottle like that, it's not the same. So I do know enough science to feel confident making that statement. And staying with the plant-based diet, no one can guarantee anything in this world along those lines, but your health will generally improve. It has for everyone else. So just keep going that direction. I'd like to hear it. If you don't mind, if you told me you saw some more benefit coming out of that idea, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Campbell. Up next, we have Kathy. Welcome, Kathy.
Oh, hello. Hi, Dr. Campbell. My question has changed as I've been waiting to ask it, but farmers are, kind of known as the salt of the earth, the hard workers. They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and they milk their cows.
Online with the top doctor in the States in Albuquerque.
Oh, let's
and
hang on.
I told him about my cancer. I told him about your.
Oh, okay. We lost it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Go right ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, farmers are like, they get up at 4 in the morning and they milk their cows, they work their fields, they sweat hard, they work hard, they come in, they eat from their gardens, or at least this was what my grandma and grandpa did. And I'm thinking about how they would react if they were told that, your lifestyle is killing us, and we need to you know, do away with everything you've done, worked so hard for, and we got to switch to this kind of lifestyle. And, you know, they're one of, you know, they're long since gone. But I have relatives who are still farmers, and actually they started out, they supplemented their farms lifestyles with working in the coal industry. And now the coal industry is going to be shot down, which I totally agree with. But having this argument with, or even a discussion with my cousin who is still on the farm, is like, it's not, there's no communication happening, because it's like, this is my way of life. And so how do we even start to approach this for all the millions of farmers out there who will be personally offended? You know, yeah, it's killing us, but this is how they're supporting their families. What do you do to try to make this change that we need?
Well, you touched on something that for me actually is personally sensitive, to be honest about it. I grew up waking up in the morning at 4:30 every morning to milk the cows. I know the farm life as well as anyone alive, I'm sure. And so when I got into the protein question and discovering what I was discovering, that's was one point that I just didn't think I could handle. How could I talk to my neighbors, my family, my friends, you know, about finding this information? I'm very much aware of that because I love the farm life, great people, really sincere, good people. And so I didn't know how to, I mean, in my mind, it took me a few years to sort of get around to that. I had to change. I didn't see any way around it. My father, good weight. He was an immigrant from Northern Ireland. He only had a couple years education, and he was 100% farm as my grandfather all the way back. And so I was almost going against the grain of my own upbringing as well as my family. And I wrestled with it a lot, and I finally had to live with what my father told me when I was young. There was something that was above all of that. He used to say to me, he would want me to get education, and so much so that I had to drive just over 100 miles a day to go to high school, to go to a school that was half, better than the local rural school. But he used to say to me, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. For him, that just was a centerpiece of his mind. So I often thought about that. If I saw something I didn't like, then try to prove it wrong. If it could prove it wrong, but if it still was there, I had to go with it. Farmers don't get that opportunity. I know that. But to get a little closer to home on that question, I think, I also know something else about the farm. It wasn't just raising animals. It was everybody had a garden and had a big garden. We had a big garden. My mom, she canned, and those days mostly canning rather than freezing because we didn't have freezers much. But she would can 300 to 400, cans of food. And so we lived on a lot of plant food too. Yes, I drank a lot of milk, and we did that sort of thing as well. But I know it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I found that the one thing about the country folk that allows them to stand up, be counted, in this context, they really are honorable people for the most part. I really have a great love for the farmers. They were family, I should say, they're family farms. I don't have the same impression of factory farms. It's a different ballgame. Altogether, it's a different ballgame. And now they're producing the majority of the food in this country, and it makes me feel very sad. But if we want to translate what your grandparents did and what I guess I was maybe close to your grandparents' age, possibly. But yeah, we lived on the farm, and we worked hard, really hard, but it's always outdoors. My father, even though he did all that, he also ate a lot of meat too. He had a heart attack when he was 62. He died when he was 70. His brother died when he was 58. Their father, my grandfather, died when he was 73. So I figure always, heart disease is on my side of the family is pretty strong. And that's one of the things that motivated me. I got to take this seriously. Well, now I'm 88. I should knock on wood. But in any case, it turns out that you can't get away from the facts. And farmers, if they're family farms, I don't know. That's the way of life, and that's a fantastic way of life. They're great people. And the biggest problem was the factory farms coming in, turning it all into a big machine. And everything is almost synthetic. And it's not the same. It's not the same. But I hear you big time. That the local farmer, the only they can do, they're honorable people, and you can just sit and be friendly with them. They're not. It's not them versus us. I'm one of them, by the way. It's just talking to them in a way that is personal, and say, well, here's what we found. And you guys do it, try it. Kind of hang around the garden more than the cowboy.